One stop for a championship. Everything you worked for your whole life is coming down to this. Florida 65, Houston 63. LJ Cryer holding the basketball. Passes off to Milos Uzan. Clock is ticking. Down to 6, down to 5. Gives it back to Cryer. 4. Gives it to Sharp. Ball's out. Ball's out. It's on the ground. That's it. Blue blood verified. The Florida Gators barge into college basketball royalty with national championship number 3. That's how I would have called those final moments. It's how I did call it on the live stream. Probably should have done a better job marketing that the day of the title game on Monday. I, though, was nervous all day long and trying to preoccupy myself with my full-time marketing job. Sure would have been a better call than what we got from the Gator play-by-play guy. Actually, my favorite call from that was from the Spanish radio broadcast, which, after calling the entire game in Spanish, manages to switch to English for one sentence and says, "Houston, you have a problem," which is utterly hilarious. But yes, indeed, the Florida Gators are national champions for the 3rd time in school history. You had the back-to-back natties in 06 and 07, rival fans claiming, "Oh, you were just a one-coach school with Billy. You caught lightning in a bottle with that one team. You'll never do anything again in basketball." Yeah, that's gone. That is dead. Done, over, finished, buried, history, no more. Mid-Major Mike is gone. There's a new sheriff in town, and his name is the Todd Father. And this is truly a golden age of Gator basketball, with year 3 of that golden age concluding with a golden coronation atop a ladder with strands of net in hands and orange and blue confetti raining down. And we will talk about all that just momentarily. But first things first, welcome back to the In All Kinds of Weather forecast. I am your host, Neil Schulman. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at All Kinds Weather. Before we do anything else, please smash that subscribe button, hit the like button. All that good stuff helps us bring you more great Gator content. Also have to take a second to shout out our sponsor. The In All Kinds of Weather forecast is proudly sponsored, as always, by 401k Generation, the wealth management company that helps you invest today for your future tomorrow. Their team of advisors is committed to providing guidance and education for your 401k plan and its participants, and they also offer a range of enrollment solutions tailored to meet the unique needs of your company's 401k plan. Whether it's savings for your child's college, investment advice, or even just your retirement, 401k Generation's team of advisors makes getting to know you their top priority. Their advisors will tailor a path to assist you in navigating life's financial milestones and reaching your financial goals. That is 401k Generation, building stronger futures, one generation at a time. For more information, contact them 866-998-5879 or visit their website at 401kgeneration.com. Also got to shout out Breaking Tea and Alma Mater. We are partnering with them to provide you the best Florida Gators national championship merch. We've also got some ourselves at inallkindsofweather.com/merch. Gainesville shirts are just the first of several that we've got coming out for you, so keep your eyes peeled for that as well. Gators 65, Cougars 63. A wild ride through the NCAA tournament is capped with the Gators' 3rd national championship. And let's just get right into it and start the conversation with a crazy talking point. Florida won a national championship with 6 wins in a row in which they didn't even play their best. They had some spurts. They never did figure out how to put it all together for 40 minutes. Now, some of that, to be totally fair, was because the Gators are playing some really good teams, including 3 top 10 teams to finish the year, but Florida had been blowing teams away throughout the season. During the regular season, Florida hammered Elite 8 teams Tennessee and Alabama by 30 and 22 points, respectively. Georgia, another NCAA tournament team, clobbered them by 30 as well. Oklahoma, another NCAA tournament team, beat them by 22. Texas, another NCAA tournament team, although the first 14, but still, beat them by 24. Mississippi State, another tournament team. Gators go on the road to their house and beat them down by 13. Ole Miss, a Sweet 16 team. Florida hammers them 92-71. 19 points, almost 20. Gators also going to Auburn and beating the Tigers by 9. It was a lot more than that. Auburn clawed their way back into it after the game was already decided. But here you have this data of Florida just absolutely sledgehammering teams all year long, left and right. They just line up to take their beatings with the efficiency of an assembly line. And then Florida just runs through the SEC tournament and wins that too. So the thinking is Florida's the hottest team in the country. They're going to win the NCAA tournament. Obviously, it's not that simple. The NCAA tournament, being a single elimination deal, is known for its weirdness. Upsets are not seen as a malfunction of the madness, they're seen as a feature of it. But even still, even knowing that weird stuff can happen, Florida was seen as the favorite because A, they're really good, and B, they're peaking at the right time. Favorites can still lose games. It happens all the time. Teams get hot late in the regular season and conference tournaments, and then they lose early in the NCAA tournament. I mean, look at Auburn last year, running through the SEC tournament, winning it. They get a 4 seed. Some people think probably should have been a 3 seed because of how they played down the stretch. They then lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament to Yale. Big upset. Year before that, 2023, Alabama wins the SEC tournament. They get a 1 seed. They're wiped out in the Sweet 16 by the 5 seed San Diego State. 2022, we can keep going back further. 2022, Tennessee wins the SEC tournament. They get a 3 seed. They're shocked by 11 seed Michigan in the round of 32. 2021, Alabama wins the SEC tournament. They get a 2 seed. They're stunned by UCLA in the Sweet 16, one of the last 4 teams in the field, a first 4 team. UCLA ending Alabama's run in a stunning fashion. History proves that winning the SEC tournament can mean something, and it can also mean nothing at all. And when you have all this data that's so wildly bouncing all over the place, the continued success in the big dance that's carried on from conference tournaments and late regular season play tends to be seen as a coincidence and not really causation. So, what does all that mean? Well, long story short, it means that if you told me after Florida beat Tennessee to win the SEC tournament that the Gators would not play another 40 minutes of good basketball, I would have said they're toast. They're cooked. Done. Good, great season. Showed a lot of promise for what's to come in the Todd Golden era. March Madness, though, has a way of punishing you if you don't play your best ball there. Great teams see their seasons end in the big dance all the time because they pick the worst time possible to play their worst game or a bad enough game that it ends their season. And yeah, I would have said there's no way that Florida wins 6 straight games, half of which would come against top 10 teams. That just goes to show you how incredible this run was. And before we talk championship game, let's set the stage for it and remind ourselves how the Gators got there. Norfolk State in the first game. Florida is up by 32 late in the first half. Then they get sloppy, and that lead gets cut all the way down to 18. It's 51-19 with a little more than 4 minutes to go in the first half, and that gets trimmed all the way down to 72-54 with 9:26 to go. 35-21 spurt for Norfolk State over the next 15 minutes. To their credit, the Gators do finish strong and win the game 95-69, but there's a lot of turnovers in that stretch. There's 12 for the game, and there's a lot of stuff that's got to get cleaned up. Todd Golden even smashed a whiteboard at halftime. UConn. Florida is down 52-46 with 9:24 left in the game. The advanced ESPN analytics say that UConn has a 78% chance to win. UConn leads almost the entire second half. They're up 61-58 now with 4:03 to go. Analytics say 71.8% chance to win. Walter Clayton says, no, that's zero. Because he just completely takes over the game. Hits a 3 over Alex Caravan. Thomas Houck finishes it off with a pair of free throws himself. Clayton has another 3 towards the, I believe, the kind of like the elbow extended down at the other end of the floor that I thought was way off and somehow just dropped. It was pure as could be. So Gators win 77-75. Dan Hurley cries like a 2-year-old who just got his lollipop stolen. UConn's aura of invincibility smashed into bits on one almighty slam by Elijah Martin. Florida's on to the Sweet 16. This one, not really a comeback, but to be fair, Maryland was going through some turmoil with Kevin Willard at the time, but Florida just could not get out of its own way. 13 turnovers in the first half. And Maryland even took the lead at one point, 30-27 with about 4 minutes to go. Second half is a totally different team. Gators run away with it. Got to give a shout out to Derek Queen on a historic moment, at least for those in the DMV area. For that buzzer beater for Maryland against Colorado State, but Florida cruising to an 87-71 win, thanks to just 20 minutes, really, of good basketball after treading water in the first half. The Elite Eight against Texas Tech. This is where Florida starts to pull out the Houdini acts. 75-66 Texas Tech with 2:50 to go. ESPN analytics give Texas Tech a 95.6% chance to win, which, of course, is more of a fun metric than a proven one, but it is based on scientifically collected data, so it's also not totally meaningless. And that sounded about right. It felt like in that moment, down 9 with under 3 minutes to go, Florida had a less than 5% chance to win. I wouldn't say Texas Tech dominated the game. That may be a little too strong, but they definitely did get the better of the play for the majority of it. Florida had no answers for JT Toppin. But Thomas Houck takes over down the stretch, and this is probably my favorite call of the whole tournament. As Kevin Harlan says, Houck comes parachuting in and snags the rebound off a Walter Clayton miss. Houck himself gets the ball back after passing it off. He hits a three, and then he hits another. So that's back-to-back threes to cut the lead down from 9-3. Clayton then hits 2 more threes to put Florida up by 3. Ruben Chinyelu then gets a defensive rebound. Florida hits their free throws. It's one of the most improbable comebacks in Elite Eight history. The Gators end that game on an 18-4 run, almost entirely by 2 players in Houck and Clayton, both of whom were all West Regional Tournament team selections, leaving Texas Tech utterly devastated and stunned. One of the biggest shots in Gator history also occurring there, Walter Clayton catching the ball on a cut in the lane, realizing he's probably not going to get a layup off over the trees he's driving through, so he just casually retreats, dribbling back out of the lane like he's just going to reset the offense and catch his breath, and suddenly he leaves his feet, somehow squares his body toward the hoop in midair, drains the 3 with 1:02 to go. That gave Florida the lead for good. From there, it's the free throw end game, and it's curtains on Grant McCaslin and the Red Raiders. So now we go to the Final Four against Auburn, and Auburn definitely gets the better of this play early on and in the middle of this game as War Eagle builds a 49-40 lead with 18:24 to go. At this point, ESPN analytics say they have a 94.9% chance to win the ball game. Florida rips off 11 points in a row. A Will Richard and 1, a Clayton 3, an Elijah Martin 3, and a Walter Clayton layup. Teams go back and forth. Florida slowly builds up a lead in the final minutes, mostly because of Clayton. Surprise, surprise, I know. He finished this game with 34 after dropping 30 in the Elite Eight game against Texas Tech. And then, with 37 seconds left, Thomas Houck is fouled. He just fires up a wild prayer as he's contacted, and it somehow goes down. And that puts Florida up by 8. It's way too big of a hole for Auburn to get out of. Euphoria, elation, West Byram, 2007 walk-off field goal Gator chomp right back in your face. Payback. You left us devastated that night. We don't really play in football anymore, unfortunately. But so now we're going to leave you 10 times more devastated by ending the best basketball season you've ever had. Come to think of it, actually, Florida, yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's fair to say Florida has owned Auburn since then in all sports. In 2015, in the Women's College World Series, you have Nicole DeWitt walking them off in the national semifinals with an opposite field slap RBI single and extra innings. 2018, Game 3 of the Super Regionals, Austin Langworthy, Lang with a bang, 11th inning, walk-off home run to send Florida back to Omaha. Got to shout out Stephen Williams there, the right fielder, for the assist on that ball. Obviously, the football game in 2019, the only time Auburn's actually been back to the Swamp since that West Byram game. The big story there, of course, is how the Michael Pirine wasn't even recruited by Auburn. He's from that area. He busts off the 88-yard touchdown run. Yeah, you think I'm too slow? I'll show you. I'll beat your top 10 team by proving you wrong and beating your guys to the sideline. And then, bye. Also, the moment in that game where Auburn's about to score and Bo Nix just runs around for a minute and a half before finally sacking himself for a 17-yard loss to take them out of field goal range is utterly hysterical to this day. And now this. Football has kind of fallen off on the plains. Gus Malzahn didn't work out there. Brian Harsin really didn't work out there. Hugh Freeze is struggling now that everyone else can pay players too. Football just isn't what it used to be there. But To Auburn's credit, Bruce Pearl came there looking for a reset after an embarrassing end to his Tennessee tenure. He got his second chance, made the most of it, got them to a Final Four in 2019, loaded up with another elite team this year, beat Florida and Todd Golden out for Johni Broome. Actually, the guys that got the player of the year talk pretty much from the start of the year also got Dylan Cardwell, Tahad Pettiford, Chad Baker, Mazzara, Miles Kelly, Denver Jones. Just a truly elite team from top to bottom. And this was supposed to be their year. And they were ranked number one for most of the year, too. Even after they skidded towards the end of the regular season, they still got the number one overall seed. Florida not only beats them down on their home floor in the regular season for their first ever win over a number one ranked team on the road, Gators make it a clean 2-game sweep over Auburn by beating them again when it matters. Auburn is finally feeling good about sports again. Even if it's not their first sport, they still feel good. They're going to make basketball their first sport now. Who cares? We're happy about sports again. We're nationally relevant. We're in the Final Four. We have a team that's ranked in the top 5 pretty much every single week. And number one for a lot of them. Gone. Snuffed out. Erased. Florida puts an end to all of that in the national semifinals. Oh man, that was something. My 13-year-old self that was crying when Wes Byram did that Gator chomp is smiling ear to ear right now. Florida, I got to move my computer so I can reenact what Byram did. But if you don't remember, or if you're a new Gator fan, he makes the kick twice because Urban tried to ice him and call a timeout. It didn't work. So he makes the kick, and then he goes like this, like he's like Steve Spurrier once did in the national title game against FSU. He's like rolling, like running or whatever. He's like, come on, keep it coming or something. So he hits the field goal. He does this, pumps his arms up, and 2 chomps, turns away from the camera. So Wes Byram, back to you, buddy. God, my 13-year-old self is so happy right now, smiling ear to ear. You know, I really miss that football rivalry. I actually have a lot of respect for Auburn. We do have a lot of things in common, and they put up with a lot of suffering to finally be good at something again. My grandfather actually raised me a little bit on that rivalry, and he's the one that told me to never let the Florida-Auburn rivalry be forgotten about. He's the one that told me, you know, before Florida LSU and Florida Tennessee became what they are, and this was like 20 years ago, but still, like 2005 or so, he said this. Before Florida LSU and Florida Tennessee grew to what they were, Florida Auburn was the rivalry for Florida outside of the cocktail party, obviously. I really want that rivalry back. Maybe with a 9-game SEC schedule, we'll get it back. But anyway, we're way off track here on this Auburn tangent. Florida's second win of the year over Auburn puts them back in the national title game. After Duke and Cooper Flagg blew a late lead against the Houston Cougars, it would be Kelvin Sampson's team that would beat the Gators for the grandest prize of all. And what a spectacular battle of styles that we have here. The offensive juggernaut in Florida that uses analytics for everything. Todd Golden literally tracks missed defensive rotations in practice to gauge performance and set his lineup. For those of you who are wondering, that's a large part of why Urban Klavjar did not play a whole lot this year. Todd Golden is a guy who will frequently play guys with 2 fouls in the first half. He will foul up 3 in the final seconds. He may even foul up 2 because the analytics tell him to. And that's what he does. And obviously he also has a Walter Clayton and a Thomas Houck on his team. Houston is very, very different. Kelvin Sampson is not an analytics guy. He doesn't even take advantage of 2-for-1s. He just doesn't care. He just wants to keep playing like it's normal. And his team didn't have a lot of offensive firepower this year. But what he does have, or what he did have, was a nasty street fighter of a program that will beat you up on the boards and play great defense. So that's the setup for this title game. The analytics-heavy coach with a great offensive team against the coach who can't stand analytics and just plays old school Detroit Pistons, bad boys, Bill Laimbeer, Isaiah Thomas, Dennis Rodman type of street ball. The flashy analytics, offensive juggernaut versus a traditional physical defense-first basketball team. And it looked like defense was going to win a championship, as the old slogan goes. Houston was up 42-30 with 15:58 to go in the game. Walter Clayton, by the way, at this point has 0 on his point total. 93.8% chance for Houston to win, say the advanced analytics. And come to think of it, maybe that's why Kelvin Sampson hates them so much, because they did not do him any good here. Over the next 8 minutes, Florida rips off an 18-6 run and ties the game at 48. And that started a pattern of Houston pulling ahead and Florida continuing to match them each and every time. And that continued all the way to the end. Walter Clayton finally awakens down the stretch, hits a huge three to tie the game at 60. Now you fast forward a couple minutes later, a minute and a half left. Houston is up 63-62. Cougars have the ball, looking to go up by 3 or 4. Milos Uzan goes up for a 3. He is rejected by Will Richard. One of the best on-ball defenders in Gator basketball history, comes up with one of the greatest defensive plays in Gator basketball history. All right, I should have said he's one of the greatest off-ball defenders in Gator basketball history, with one of the greatest on-ball defensive plays here. You never know what that ball's trajectory would have been. If it's pure, 66-62 Houston with about 90 seconds to go. And obviously Florida has made a living of winning games by comeback this year, but on the other hand, you have to wonder how many more of those do they have in them? I mean, is this the night where they finally cannot undo their earlier subpar play and they cannot come back to win? Is this the night where it finally comes back to bite them? Are they out of this magic now? Obviously, being down 4 with 90 seconds left is not a death sentence, but it's also a good bit harder to come back from than down 1 with 90 seconds to go. We'll never know how that would have played out, because the shot was rejected by Richard. Ball goes out of bounds. Houston keeps it with 4 on the shot clock. Ball goes to LJ Cryer, who drives and misses. Joseph Tugler gets the rebound for Houston. And here's where we enter the story of Alex Condon. We keep it respectful, but we keep it real. He did not have a great NCAA tournament. He did not seem to be the same player since he got hurt in the road win at Mississippi State. But what a championship game he had. 12 points, which was 12 times as many as he had in the semifinal against Auburn. 7 rebounds, 4 steals, and 1 Matt Elam-esque strip of Joseph Tugler right there. Remember that day in Gainesville? The SEC on CBS, 3:30. LSU comes to the Swamp to play Florida. Zach Bentenberger drops back, deep bomb to Odell Beckham Jr. Looks like Beckham's going to score. Here comes Matt Elam flying down the sidelines. He gets a hand in there and he rips the ball out. Deontay Saunders recovers for Florida. Gators go on to win that game 14-6. Of course, basketball and football are very different. This situation was very different, obviously, because Tugler did not have control of the ball and was moving with it before Condon got in there. But Tugler got the ball. Condon never really let him control it or do anything with it. He gets one hand in there, he gets a second hand in there, and he rips it out. He goes from underneath and he rips it up. Ball goes flying up in the air. It was ruled to be last touched by Tugler. Florida would get the ball back. Possession arrow saved. Not even a tie-up, by the way, which seemed to be what he was trying to do at first. Condon saves that. Gives Florida the ball outright. Gators miss. Houston gets it back with about a minute to go. They don't even use clock. They just want to go. LJ Cryer drives. Thomas Houck is not feeling it. He blocks the shot. Condon grabs it. Florida gets it back. Still down by 1. Elijah Martin drives. He's fouled. Hits them both. Gators now up by 1, 64-63. Houston gets it back with a chance to take the lead back. Emmanuel Sharp drives past Will Richard, or at least he thinks he's going to drive past Will Richard, because as Sharp is going by, Richard sneaks upon there and slaps the ball away. Ball careens off of Sharp's knee and out of bounds. Florida ball. Denzel Aberdeen gets it. He's fouled. He splits the pair. 65-63 Gators. And now we come back to the caption contest that I posted on Twitter. What are we going to call what happens next? I think the winner is Florida Basketball Hour. Neil Blackman. Shout out to them, by the way. Great stuff all year long. They call this One Shining Closeout. And to bring the whole story full circle, this was how I called it on the live stream. One stop for a championship. I wrote this down. I got the transcript and wrote it down. One stop for a championship. Everything you've worked for your whole life comes down to this. Florida 65, Houston 63. LJ Cryer's holding the basketball. Passes to Milos Uzan. Clock is ticking. Down to 6. Down to 5. Gives it back to Cryer. Gives it to Sharp. 4. Ball's out. On the ground. That's it. Blue blood verified. The Florida Gators barge into college basketball royalty with national championship number 3. From there, let the confetti fall. Ladders are brought out. Guys climb them, cut the nets down. Tears, videos are taken, phones are all out. Todd Golden with some Gator chomps, hugging his players. Jonathan Safir, one of his assistants, jumps into the arms of Alex Condon. The party spills out after they hoist the trophy. It spills out onto the river of San Antonio. Gator fans line up on both sides. Orange and blue has taken over that river walk as the players and coaches board a boat that takes them down the river. They're holding up the trophy. They've got Golden's got the net around his neck. The players are shotgunning beers that fans are lobbing onto the boat, which is one of the funniest things that I saw part of that celebration. They're shotgunning beers. They're chugging them. They're smashing them on their foreheads. They are enjoying life right now. They're enjoying being Florida Gators. And you know what? So am I. And so are all of us. Quick aside. This is not an ad, by the way. It may sound like one, but it's not. I work for a digital marketing firm in my full-time job, which is part of why it took so long to do this show. I know how content gets more views. Hell, I had our company start our own podcast. I pushed for that. Not to make money off the podcast with sponsors or a lot of plays or views or listens, but because podcasts provide great opportunities to clip stuff into short sound bites. We then run those sound bites on social media and let them go viral in isolation. People are going to see those viral clips, want to know more about the account that is putting them out there, go to that account, probably check out their website, and if they see a need for their services, they'll do it. That's how podcasts are really relevant for a lot of businesses. Not if you're, Josh Peck or if you're, Logan Paul or one of those, influencers. But if you're a business or even if you're just a sports fan, that's how you start really getting an online name for yourself. So that's what we're going to do here. Because, full transparency, what's coming next is absolutely an attempt to do that. And it's also how I believe I can best pay homage to those who gave their blood, sweat, and tears for this logo and restored the Gators to greatness. Let's start with Condon. Alex Condon, unranked by the 247 Sports Composite Recruiting Service, coming from Australia. One offer, Florida. Alex, you overcame an injury, on-court struggles that came because of that injury, and a whole lot of frustration that came with that injury. And you came through when we needed you most. You dove on that ball to melt away the final seconds off the clock. You were the last player to touch the basketball in 2024-25. I don't think we win this natty without your 12 points, 4 steals, and 7 boards, or the general toughness and perseverance that you showed. You came here from Australia because you wanted to prove the doubters wrong. And along the way, you took countless elbows, body blows, a literal punch to the head from Mohamed Wagi from Alabama last year. Countless shots we'll never even see in practice and in games when the camera isn't on you. All with the end goal in sight at Florida. Because Todd Golden was the only one who believed in you from when he recruited you to now. And on into the future, because I hope your career in Gainesville is not done yet. And you paid off that belief by literally clinching the championship for him and the team that he built. Alex Condon, you have locked up a spot in Gator lore. You will forever be known as a national champion and a Gator great. You have Gator Nation's undying gratitude and appreciation. Alex, thank you. Denzel Aberdeen, you were ranked number 150 in the 247 Sports Talent Composite Recruiting Rankings, coming out of Orlando. It seems like, with Condon, the best is yet to come for you as well. It seems as though you're coming back next year. But whether you're an All-American next year and you become a Walter Clayton clone, which, I don't like to say because you're Denzel Aberdeen, you're not Walter Clayton, but whether you become an All-American next year or you never even play another possession at Florida, doesn't matter. Because you were able to come off the bench time and again this year and give the Gators quality guard play whenever Clayton, Richard, or Martin had to sit. And there just wasn't that big of a drop-off. If you didn't do what you did, Golden would have had to play those other three guys more, which would have led to them tiring quicker, thus the quality of play dropping, during which opponents could have taken advantage. Nobody is going to make the case that you're a Walter Clayton clone, as I alluded to a second ago. But when you subbed in for him, or for Richard, or for Martin, the Gators were every bit as good of a basketball team while you were on the floor. You're a really good player, Zell. You're a really, really good basketball player. You could have transferred somewhere else, been the star, been the guy. It could have been your team, your show, pretty much anywhere else in the country. Maybe not Auburn or Duke. Pretty much anywhere else. It could have been your show. You could have been the driving force behind any other team's deep March Madness run. But no. You came to Florida, you were a Gator. You wanted to stay a Gator. You were willing to accept a lesser role just so that you could be a Gator. And in this money-hungry NIL world, I mean, just look at Tennessee. Look at Tennessee football right now with the Nico Iamaleava situation, which is unfortunately becoming more and more the norm in college sports than the exception. Not Denzel Aberdeen. And as a bit of fun trivia, or maybe just your destiny, either way, you scored the final point of the 2025 championship run. Denzel, you've locked up a spot in Gator lore. You will forever be known as a national champion and a Gator great. You have Gator Nation's undying gratitude and appreciation. Zell, thank you. Micah Hanlogton. How about this story? Unranked out of high school, started at Marshall. According to 247 Sports, that was his only offer. Transferred to Florida, played pretty well in 2023-24, but a gruesome injury in the SEC tournament final, a broken leg, ended that. Not only did it end that season, it didn't seem like you'd play this year either. Seemed like you're headed for a red shirt. But in February, when Alex Condon went down and you were doing well in your rehab, you changed your minds, or you changed Florida's minds for them. You said, no, I don't want a red shirt. I want to help this team this year, now. I don't want them to miss a beat. They're looking special. I want to be a part of it. More importantly, I'm not going to let them miss a beat. I'm going to step in there, take my lumps, get the rust off. Maybe that could bring some frustration for me. I don't care. I'm going to give the Gators some damn good minutes off the bench and contribute with some rebounds. And I'm going to contribute with some points too when I can. That's exactly what you did, Micah. 25 boards in 6 NCAA tournament games, also blocked a shot in the title game. You definitely made your presence felt. Micah, you've locked up a spot in Gator lore. You will forever be known as a national champion and a Gator great. You have Gator Nation's undying gratitude and appreciation. Micah, thank you. Will Richard, ranked number 330 in the 247 Sports Talent Composite Recruiting Rankings. The first commit of Todd Golden's Florida Gators tenure. The Deadeye 3-shooter, an elite off-ball defender, developed this habit of just blowing up screens or even just jumping the passing lane and breaking up the pass, frequently dropping out of the sky to just snag a board out of nowhere or poke the ball away mid-dribble. An elite off-ball defender who also became a really good on-ball defender too and made the block down the stretch that helped Florida seal the NCAA tournament championship. And of course, the IQ, the intelligence, the basketball IQ that you've got. Everyone always talks about your leadership abilities, and Todd Golden himself talked about how you always made eye contact with everyone. It's always yes, sir, no, sir, very respectful and polite off the court. And then you go on the court and you're an animal. And of course, as great leaders do, you led by example. You led the Gators with 18 points in the title game, including some big threes when the offense wasn't coming so easily. You saved your best for last, or at the very least, you saved your clutchest performance for last. And you depart Florida as a national champion who left the place a lot better than he found it. Because when you came here, Florida had a losing record. The Gators are coming off a really bad season in Mike White's final year. And in Todd Golden's first season at Florida, it was worse. You came to Florida with things being bad before you got there. And in your first year, things got worse. From there, you were one of the driving forces that led the Gators up from that lowest of low to the highest of high. You won the final game you ever played as a college basketball player, which is something that very few people can say. And Will, you've locked up a spot in Gator lore. You will forever be known as a national champion and a Gator great. You have Gator Nation's undying gratitude and appreciation. Will, thank you. Ruben Chinyelu, ranked 101 in the 247 Sports Composite Recruiting Rankings out of high school. Florida's got something of a big eye pipeline coming from Nigeria, now that I think about it. First John Agbunu about 8 years ago, and now Ruben Chinyelu. 42 boards in 6 NCAA tournament games. That's an average of 7 boards a game. And just a ferocious presence down low. And you probably got some of the worst of the body blows that happened down there in the trenches, taking elbows and shoulder checks, accumulating more bruises than any of us can probably fathom. And you just don't think anything of it. It's always just back to work for you the next day. And the next day you get better at your craft. And like Zell and like Micah and like Alex Condit, it seems like you'll probably be a part of the Gators' future under Todd Golden and that your story is far from over. But already, you have locked up a spot in Gator lore. You will forever be known as a national champion and a Gator great. You have Gator Nation's undying gratitude and appreciation. Ruben, thank you. Elijah Martin. What a story this is, too. Unranked out of high school. Offers from FAU, Jackson State, Alcorn State, McNeese, New Orleans, Southeast Louisiana, Southern Miss, and Troy. You already wrote yourself a really good story for yourself in the college basketball history books with that Final Four run you took FAU on. Then Dusty May leaves for FAU, and you leave too because you don't think your legacy is complete. You believed in Todd Golden and what he was building, and he believed in you. Guess what? The perfect marriage was built. A tremendous on-ball defender. Will Richard is the great off-ball defender. You are the great on-ball defender. Yin and yang, the perfect complementary defensive skill sets right there. And you could score in a variety of ways. You could shoot from 3. You could get to the line and score from there. You could drive the lane and even spell a center sometimes with some of those poster dunks that you had. 13.8 points in the NCAA tournament on average. Recorded at least 1 steal in 4 of those 6 games. Just a guy who could do it all. A guard who drops like Vince Carter dunks over his opponents in the NCAA tournament. That's quite a memory that you made for us. And now, like Will Richard, you depart Florida having left it far better than when you found it. You also depart Florida having won the final game of your college career. You have locked up a spot in Gator lore. You will forever be known as a national champion and a Gator great. You have Gator Nation's undying gratitude and appreciation. Elijah, thank you. Thomas Houck. Unranked coming out of high school. This is one of the great stories I've ever seen in sports, by the way. One of the greatest stories I've seen in any sport that I've covered. You know, every little kid who has any athleticism or doesn't even, and just like sports, develop some kind of fantasy about themselves playing those sports on the biggest stages. Baseball players fantasize about hitting the walk-off grand slam in the bottom of the ninth for the New York Yankees. Football players fantasize about catching the winning touchdown pass. Basketball players fantasize about hitting the winning 3 or making the game-winning dunk. Millions of kids have these dreams. Tens of millions of kids have these dreams. I'm one of them. I could never do this. I didn't have that insane work ethic. And this isn't about me. This is about the tens of millions of kids like me who dreamed about playing for their favorite sports teams one day and being the hero for them that would live on forever in those teams' histories. But what happens to most of those kids is that at some point they just drop off. They're passed by. They either get outworked or they're just not talented enough. And when they're outworked by someone who just wants it a little bit more. It doesn't make them lazy. It doesn't make them failures. Most of the young athletes within the top 1% of athleticism and work ethic don't even get the chance to do what Thomas Houck is doing right now. 12 people can play for a specific basketball team. That's it, 12. Out of tens of millions of kids who want to play for a certain school or team, 12 do. Less than 1/100th of 1% who get to live that dream. And a lot of these kids are still very successful, by the way. Like playing college basketball for Ohio or Wyoming or Massachusetts is still very impressive. That's what happens to a lot of the close but no cigar little kids who dream about playing for a massive brand like Gator Basketball, which is still very good. But Thomas Houck is special. Thomas Houck is one of those top 1/100th of 1% guys. He grew up a Gator fan. The basketball team went back to back when he was a baby. Tim Tebow played football when he was a toddler. That was all he knew. That was all she wrote. He was a Gator. He went to school with an orange and blue Gator lunchbox in the middle of Pennsylvania, where there wasn't a Gator fan within a 50-mile radius, or not a 150-mile radius of where he was. And through the years, he did not just fantasize about hitting game-winning shots. He didn't just practice these floating buzzer beater scenarios like Chris Chiozza did against Wisconsin and MSG in 2017. He put the work in. He lifted weights. He practiced his free throws. He did drill after drill. He challenged himself. And by the way, this goes for everyone on the team. You don't get to be a Florida Gator basketball player without putting in this insane amount of work. But Houck did it all the while dreaming of playing for the Florida Gators. The other guys didn't grow up as Gator fans. They grew up wanting to play basketball, and Florida was their best chance to do it, so they adopted the orange and blue. They injected themselves with the orange and blue blood. They're Gators now. They're forever Gators. They're not wavering or waffling in that, but they didn't grow up with this dream in mind. Thomas Houck was the only one doing all this work with that orange and blue, live my dream with the Florida Gators, specific play for this one team goal in mind. Well, actually, no, he was one of two. There's one other aside from Thomas Houck. He's one of two players of the 12 on this Florida Gators team that grew up putting all that work in just to play for this specific team. And after all those years of hard work, Thomas Houck is living his dream on a daily basis. He hit those free throws to bury UConn in the round of 32 in Raleigh and snapped their aura of invincibility. He hit those back-to-back threes to start the comeback against Texas Tech. He hit that crazy falling away fling as he's fouled to finish off Auburn in the Final Four. He rejected that shot from LJ Cryer in the final minute of a one-score game in the championship. Of course it's Thomas Houck. Of course it's him. Who else should it be? The guy that put himself through hell and back to play for this team, not just give himself a chance to play basketball and make money one day in the NBA, to play basketball for this school, for this brand, this logo, for these colors. All that work since he was a little boy just to live this moment with this program. Legendary, cinematic, historic, fantasy becomes reality. Thomas, I hope you'll be back at the University of Florida. But if that's it for you, you have locked up a spot in Gator lore. You will forever be known as a national champion and a Gator great. You have Gator Nation's undying gratitude and appreciation. Thomas, thank you. And last but not least, we come to Walter Clayton. Unranked coming out of high school, turned down the chance to follow Rick Pitino from Iona to St. John's. He became a father, wanted to come home to Florida. And you know, there's so much I could say about Clayton. There are so many moments I could point to. I could mention the back-to-back 30-plus point games in the Elite Eight and Final Four. I could mention the specific turnaround jumper against Texas Tech to give the Gators a lead that they would not let go of, or how he took over the game against UConn, or how he overcame being shut out in the first half of the biggest game of his life to score 11 points when Florida needed him most down the stretch of that game. Or how he officially started the celebration by catching the ball from Alex Condon as he was lying down as time ran out. Or how he scored 134 points in the NCAA tournament, which is by far the most in a single tournament in Gator basketball history. I could mention how he grew up a Gator fan, like Thomas Houck, how he put the work in specifically for moments like this in these colors, these orange and blue jerseys with this Gator logo. So he could have these moments like the one he got to live in real time. Like he saw his chance to come home when Pitino left Iona and jumped on it as he became a father coming back to the state of Florida. But you know what the best way to describe Walter Clayton is? First team All-American. The first ever first team All-American in the history of Gator basketball. That is historic. He owns a piece of Gator basketball history. I don't think there's more to say than that. He is historic. And I'm still not sure he's the GOAT of Gator basketball. I think Al Horford has that claim because he's got 2 rings to Clayton's 1 ring. Also, Horford played 3 years to Clayton's 2. Joakim Noah also probably has him beat in the GOAT argument for that same reason. And then again, those 2 guys did have each other to help balance the workload. Also, Corey Brewer. Clayton did have Haug. It's not like he did it all by himself. Also had Will Richard and Eliza Martin. It takes a team. But still, 2 rings to 1, I kind of go with the 04s. But you see what's happening here? The point here is that's a conversation. It's a real conversation. You can rationally make the claim that Clayton is Gator basketball's GOAT. He departs Florida with that distinction. And that speaks louder about him than anything else I can say. Walter Clayton Jr. set records and made history at Florida with his greatness. Walter, you've locked up a spot in Gator lore. You will forever be known as a national champion and a Gator great. You have Gator Nation's undying gratitude and appreciation. Thank you, Walter. And speaking of history, Florida has rewritten the history books of college basketball because there's a big difference between 3 national championships and 2. No longer is Florida a one-coach school. Patrick Young said it himself on our show last month. If Todd Golden wins a title, he has officially changed Florida into a blue blood. To win 3 national titles with 2 different coaches establishes you as a blue blood. 3 national championships, 4 national championship games, 6 Final Fours, 10 Elite Eights. This is a blue blood program. And I don't mean the last 30 years. I mean all time. So we're going to cap the show by discussing some things that might be difficult for some rival fans, something called facts. Here we go. Here's a list of schools with 3 or more national titles. It's 9 schools. UCLA has 11. Kentucky has 8. North Carolina and Connecticut have 6. Duke and Indiana have 5. Kansas has 4. Florida and Villanova each have 3. Nobody else has more than 2. There are 9 schools. 9 schools throughout that century plus. Well, not quite. There were pre-Helms tournaments, but in about 80 plus years of the NCAA basketball tournament, there are 9 schools that have won 3 national titles. Florida is one of them. Blue blood verified. Florida has also locked down its everything school status. Florida is the only school to have won a football, basketball, baseball, and softball national title this century. Only Michigan, Ohio State, and UCLA have done it ever. Florida is also the only school to have 3 national championships in football and in men's basketball. And as that stat may indicate, Florida is also the only school to win 3 national titles in football and basketball, and at least 1 in both baseball and softball. Sorry, Tennessee fans. I know you guys are really going through it with the Nico Iamaleava situation, but you were the ones who called yourself the everything school, despite your men's basketball program not having a single Final Four appearance. You brought this on yourself. Anyway, Florida is now the only school to have played for 4 national championships in football, basketball, baseball, and softball, and win a national title at least once in all 4 sports. So that's the CFP and BCS eras for football. And full transparency, I would have gone back and culled through old Sugar Bowls and Rose Bowls and Orange Bowls, but no other school even made it this far in the qualification tunnel, so it didn't even matter. But yeah, that's the BCS CFP for football, national title game in basketball, and College World Series finals in baseball and softball. So the stats on that: Florida played for the national title in football in the 95 season, losing to Nebraska. Again in the 96 season, crushing FSU 52-20. A third time in 2006 or January of 07, blasting Ohio State in the desert 41-14. And then a 4th time in 2008, beating Oklahoma 24-14. Basketball-wise, Florida lost its first NCAA title game in 2000 to Michigan State, beat UCLA in 2006, beat Ohio State, sound familiar, in 2007, and then beat Houston and San Antonio just a week ago. Both football and men's basketball are 3-1 in national title games. Baseball has a different pattern. They have a pattern of making the championship series every 6 years, like clockwork. made it to the CWS finals for the first time in 2005, got swept by Texas. Made it back in 2011. They got swept there by South Carolina. Made it back again in 2017, where they swept LSU for their first ever national title in baseball. Then made the CWS finals a fourth time in 2023, where LSU got some payback and settled that score with a 3-game CWS finals victory. Softball's actually made it 5 times. They lost to Danielle Laurie in Washington in 2009. 2 years later, ran into another buzzsaw in Dallas Escobedo and Arizona State. Neither game really competitive. 2014 finally broke through, Gators sweeping Alabama for their first ever softball title, and they go back-to-back the very next year, beating Michigan in 3 games in 2015, 4-1 in that decisive third game. 2 years later, Gators make it back to the final where Oklahoma sweeps them in 2 really heartbreaking losses. One of the longest softball games ever. It still hurts that they Gators should have won that series. But they didn't, but there you go. Football, men's basketball, baseball, softball. Gators have played for the national championship 4 times in all 4 of those sports, and they've won at least 1 in all of them. Last but not least, Florida has 49 national championships now across 14 sports. There are a few schools that have more. Stanford, UCLA, USC, Texas, Penn State, Oklahoma State, Arkansas, and North Carolina. However, we should also note that not only do some of those schools have national titles in sports that Florida doesn't even have, but a lot of those schools got their natty totals in some ways that need a lot more context. And let's start with Stanford, who leads the way in the all-time all-sport natty count. They have over 130 national titles now. There is one glaring omission to their trophy case. Cardinal does not have a single football title, the biggest sport of all. Also, they have 1 national title in basketball, which came in 1942. And if we are brushed up on our American history, there was a global event happening at that time that caused a lot of college-aged men to be overseas fighting for their country. So take that with a grain of salt. Still counts, but needs a little asterisk by it. UCLA has 1 national title in football in 1954, and they don't even own that title for themselves. They have to split it with Ohio State, who won the AP vote, while UCLA got the FWAA vote. I know it's hard to fathom that you can win a national title without playing for it nowadays, but that's how it used to be done before the era of the BCS and the Alliance Bowls. That's how it was. You just had people sit around and vote, and whoever got the most votes was a national champ. And you had multiple polls, so you could have multiple national championships. That's how Georgia claims one in 1942, which, as we just talked about a moment ago, with Stanford basketball, kind of has to have an asterisk by it. So that's UCLA. USC obviously has an elite history in both football and baseball. They've fallen off recently, but their history is there. But their basketball program has not won a single national title. They have not even reached the Final Four since 1954. Texas, likewise, has a rich baseball and football history. Nothing in that men's basketball trophy case. Penn State has 56 national titles. But you should know, of those 56, 12 of them came in men's gymnastics, 13 of them came in wrestling, and another one of them came in fencing. And look, I'm not here to gatekeep what is and what is not a real sport. The guys who or girls who put their efforts in to get to where they are clearly deserve respect and admiration. But what I will say is that while they won those titles fair and square, I think we can all agree that it's quite different to win a national title against 50 or 60 or 70 other suitors who play the same sport as you versus 350 plus in basketball and 130 plus in FBS football. Likewise, Oklahoma State has 53 overall national titles. Florida has 49. So you think, all right, Oklahoma State's got us beat. But you should know, Oklahoma State has 34 of those 53 overall natties in wrestling. So, yes, you've got us beat in wrestling. You're a better wrestling school than Florida. Florida doesn't even have a wrestling program. But it's pretty clear which argument is stronger in terms of the everything school debate, with Florida having 49 national titles over 14 sports. Lastly, Arkansas, 52. overall national championships. All but one of them came in either cross country or track and field. That's it. They have one in basketball, zero in baseball, zero in football. They have a somewhat of a claim at one, but not a very strong one. And there you have it. Of those other 8 schools that have more overall national titles than Florida, there's quite a lot of bit of context that has to be applied there. So to recap, Florida's got 3 national titles in the 2 biggest revenue sports, football and men's basketball. Gators have also won national titles in each of the next 2 most popular sports, that's baseball and softball. And in total, 49 national titles across 14 sports. And oh, by the way, they've done all of this since most of us have been alive. Nobody else can say all of that. Only 2 or 3 other schools can say any of those things. And of those 2 or 3 other schools, there are some major asterisks that need to be applied there. So, gavel bang, mic drop, end of conversation, end of discussion, end of argument. Florida's the everything school. Florida is a blue blood basketball program, and that's a great way to end the show. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment down below. Let us know what you think. Is Florida a blue blood? Yes, they are. Is Florida the everything school? Yes, they are. Leave us a 5-star review and a nice rating on Apple Podcasts if you watch there. Guys, it's great to be a Florida Gator. We are the champions, my friends. We are now established as one of the elites in not just college basketball, but all of college sports. And when we say it's great to be a Florida Gator, it's things like that that give us the ability to say it and to believe it. And you know what else? That's what gives other fan bases the motivation to mock us. But when we say that, because they know it's true.